things that were formerly triggers end up becoming reminders that you're just getting uncentered, that you're just getting kind of projected, and you just got to remember the goodness and fullness that you already have inside of yourself. Welcome to Universal Man. My name is Mark Kwepp, and I'm here to help you play a bigger game with your life and become a man that you admire by mastering yourself, optimizing your lifestyle, and conquering your goals. And today what I'm going to be doing is sharing with you two of the most powerful internal techniques that I know of: centering and reclaiming. This video could just as easily go into my Enter the Omni Game series as it could go into my Sexual Self-Mastery series, because the first technique of centering will help you focus your energy whenever you're feeling scattered, disconnected, distracted, etc. It's extremely useful, especially if you're practicing some of the manifestation stuff we talked about in the last video. And my second technique, reclaiming, is really about taking power back from things that trigger you, that set you off, that fill you with emotion that you don't really want to have. There are so many things in this life that'll make you feel attraction, desire, resentment, anger, whatever, and you don't really want to be feeling those feelings. There's something inauthentic going on there, and reclaiming is the process, usually, of healing that. But before we get into it, please take a second to go check out my Vanguard community, where you'll find other like-minded men living on the front lines of their lives, and check out my Anabolic Optimism guide to build an anti-fragile mindset for whatever sort of goals you currently are pursuing. So, with that being said, time to dive into the centering. Okay, so how does centering work? Well, the way that I discovered centering was I was practicing the claim technique that I described in the last video. It's just a form of intention usage. All right, it's a method of manifestation. The claim technique, it means celebrate longing as if manifest. So when you go to get yourself to do something, you imagine, okay, how would it feel if I already had this thing done? You know, mix it with gratitude, and then you resonate with that feeling and take action from a place of already having it. Okay, and this is really powerful, because instead of coming from a place of lack, where you're saying, oh, if I don't do this, then something bad happens to me. If I don't do this, then I suck, which is how most people get themselves to do things. You instead come up from a place of, I'm already good, and I'm just going to reflect that goodness in my action. And it's a so much better way to operate, even if it's a little counterintuitive at first. See, I was practicing this kind of stuff, and sometimes I could do it really well and it was amazing, but other times when I would try and tap into that feeling of already having, of already being the person that I want to be, all I would get is negative feedback. Sometimes it would be because my brain was really scattered. I wanted all different things, or I just felt like I wasn't good enough. I just had all kinds of negativity swirling around inside of me, and I couldn't find that target node, and I couldn't resonate with it. I couldn't find that feeling of already being the guy I wanted to be and holding that energy and just letting that, flow out, which is the whole technique, right? And if I couldn't do that, well, then it seemed like all I had left was to use that stick of self-hatred of like, if you don't do this, you suck. And I didn't want to go back that way. So I knew there had to be a better option. And from this, the centering technique was born. All right, so I want to paint you a picture. Imagine that your emotionality is like a spring in the center of your being. And this spring, it's plugged into an irrigation system of your psyche, all right? And wherever that water flows, stuff grows, okay? It's similar to where the attention flows, or where the energy flows, or the attention, where the attention goes, the energy flows, right? Yeah, it's kind of like that concept, okay? So we got this spring, and when you're uncentered, what's going on is that your energy, your emotionality is plugged into all these different networks, all these different little streams, Going back to the causality matrix, it means that you're resonating with a bunch of different threads at once. And because of this, your energy is scattered. And it's going to be very difficult for you to get that water to the right part of your little creation farm, your little manifestation desires, okay? So what we have to do is we got to figure out how to draw that water out of the paths that we don't want it to go down. And when we can bring it all into the center, well, then we are centered. And once you're centered, you can then direct it much more intentionally where you want it to go. So how do we do this? How do we bring all of our energy into our core? Well, it's actually really pretty simple. First thing is we got to bring our awareness into our emotional center. So you have to first notice that you're getting distracted and getting uncentered, that you're getting distracted, your attention's here, you're wanting a bunch of things, maybe you're getting upset, whatever. You got to bring your attention right into the center of your chest. This is our core part where we have a lot of our emotional neurons or whatever it is that lets us feel things. So we bring it in there, and from there we're going to figure out what the heck do we want. We're looking for desire, because desire is the currency of emotion. It's where all emotion stems from us wanting something. And so what we got to do is we just got to follow the flow of energy. What is it that we want in that moment? And we just got to name it. It's like, I want to take a nap, or I want, this project to work out, or I want, that person to treat me differently. Whatever's swirling around in your mind, just start taking inventory. Just name the things. And then just pick one. Usually it's best to pick the one that's got the most energy connected to it. Okay? And what you want to do is you're actually focusing on feeling your desire. Centering is a process of letting yourself feel desire. That's the goal, is to feel all of your desire that you have right now. And it creates a very interesting dynamic, because normally we want to stop feeling desire. That's kind of how desire works. It's a pain. It's like this, I want this thing. And then once we have the thing, the desire feels fulfilled, right? So it's the removal of desire that we tend to be looking for. But in the centering process, it's the opposite. We want to feel the fullness of our desire, because our desire really, it's our life force. Desire is the thing that makes life go. That's what drives life, is that we want. And it's good. It's a good, wonderful thing. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring all that desire back and purify it and take it out of stuff that we don't want. So the way we do that is we pick one of the things that we want at the moment. We let ourselves feel the thing, and we're thinking about it. Maybe it's like you want someone at work to treat you better. Okay? You let yourself feel that desire, and while thinking it, and then here's the trick. You let yourself keep feeling it, but you let go of the thought. So you feel the desire of wanting that person to treat you better, but you stop thinking about the person. You stop thinking about how they would treat you better or what you want them to do. Once you have a hold of the desire, you can let go of the thought. And what you're left then is just a feeling. That means that you basically have pulled that energy out of that causal thread, and you've reclaimed it. You've put it back into your center. And then you just follow your awareness. What's the next desire you want? Maybe you need to do another round of the one you just did. And you go through it desire by desire until you find the desire, you think about it, you feel it, and then you release the thought. Find the desire, think about it, release the thought. And eventually this becomes second nature, and you can kind of just go through all of them like pulling it all back, releasing the thoughts, holding the feeling. And you want to feel it. And you look at that feeling as good. That's your life force. That's your energy. That's the thing that we're looking for. And then eventually you get kind of this sun glowing in your chest, this big ball of energy. And you want to relax into it. If it feels kind of sad and upset, then you want to try and validate it. Imagine smiling at that energy, welcoming it in. For most of us, this is very strange. Most of us run away from our desires. We try and keep them at arm's length. We try to turn them down because they're troublesome. I'm telling you, we want to turn them all the way up and relax into them. It's like basking in this golden liquid. It's a very good thing, a very wonderful thing when you get good at it. And once you go through everything, you're not really thinking about anything specific, and you've got all your desire. Well, hey, right now, you're centered, and you're going to feel it. You're going to feel all that energy right in here. And from here, it's much easier to then practice the claim method. It's easy then to pick, all right, here's the thing that I want, that I really want. This is the target node, that point in the causality matrix that we're aiming for. And we imagine, how would it feel if we already had that? So you mix the desire with the idea of already having that desire, and that calibrates your core. That calibrates your internal psychomagnet, and it acts like a metal detector. And you get it resonates and beeps with whatever thing is going to help you. And then you're going to be able to fall into a flowing pattern of resonance of activity. So, maybe it's, you got to get some work done. Okay. You center yourself first because you're all scattered. You think about, how would I feel if I already had this project done? That calibrates your core, gets all that energy vibrating toward the alignment of manifesting a completed project. And then you just act. You let yourself flow into the state. And once you're in the groove, you just stay in the groove until you're done. And if you fall out of it, just recenter and claim it again. Now, centering alone is not going to get you past every sort of issue. Okay. There are specific issues that require something a little bit further. Okay. And in particular, I'm talking about projections. We talked about projections a lot in the second episode of the Enter the Omni Game series. And a projection in our little spring, an irrigation model, instead of just having, water scattered, it's almost like there are competing little springs, okay? And it's almost like water is spouting up where we don't want it to go. It's more than just bring the energy back. We have to somehow figure out how to repair that water flowing over there where we don't really want it flowing. So let's paint a picture of what I mean by this. All right. So imagine that you're practicing NoFap, or trying to quit porn, or you're just trying to be a faithful husband or something like that. And you see a pretty woman and all of a sudden you're filled with lustful thoughts. Okay. You're filled with a craving desire. Okay. Well, you don't want that. That's like a spring of energy that has sprung up without your permission, and it doesn't really serve your goals or your desires, right? So how do we deal with that? Well, that thing's a projection. We got to figure out how to reclaim that energy, like really fix it, right? Maybe another example is that your friend makes more money than you and he gets a new car, and all of a sudden you're jealous. And you don't want to be jealous. You want to be happy for them. You want to feel, proud of them, and you want to be, in your own lane and supporting yourself, not having all this, triggered energy come up, right? Or maybe you just got a presentation coming up, and every time you think about it, your stomach turns into knots, and that's not serving you. That's not going to help you put on a good presentation. You want to be able to be more calm and controlled with all of this. You see, with all of these things, they are circuits that are being activated in a way where there's a piece of you where it's not supposed to be. That's what a projection is. I explained it previously as if, imagine you're this big magnet. You experience trauma in your life, which causes that magnet to break. You experience some form of rejection, something that tells you that you're not inherently good and valuable and whole as you are. And so that breaks a little chunk of you off and floats around your psyche until it finds something to embed itself in. So then we have two different charges. We got the charge of your core, and then we got the charge of the thing that your psyche has embedded itself in. So that could be, it's usually almost always, it's some kind of status insecurity. So it's like you think that you are only okay if you make a certain amount of money. You think that you're only okay if you, sleep with a certain amount of women. You think you believe that you're only good if, you look a certain way. All right. You've invested a piece of you put a piece of your peace and security out in something else that's not supposed to be there. You're actually fine without those things, or you can at least value yourself and be at peace. Doesn't mean you don't work for them. Again, look at my previous videos for more explanation on that. But we got to figure out how to fix this situation. And this is where we move into the reclaim methodology. Okay. So we have the claim, which is a kind of manifestation, and then reclaim is a little wrinkle on it, okay? So it's like an expansion of it. So the claim methodology, we pick a target node, we imagine we already have it, we mix it with gratitude, we unfold, right? Okay, simple enough. Now, what if we are dealing with a projection? Okay, well, here's where things get a little bit trickier, okay? And we're going to imagine that we already have the desire met in the same way as we did with claim, but we kind of have to use what I call the idealized after moment. And let's just do examples because I think that'll make it the most clear. Okay, so imagine that you're craving that beautiful woman you see. Okay, maybe she triggers you sexually, and all of a sudden you're fantasizing about her. Emotionally, you want to hook up with her. All this kind of energy is flowing through you. Maybe you want to just relapse and use porn or something like that. Okay, and authentically, that's not who you are. That's not who you want to be. And that's how you can tell that you're in a projection, that you have a desire that is not authentic. Okay, that's probably one of the simplest tests. If you have a desire that's not authentic, there's some kind of projection going on. Okay, so you have this woman, you want her. What we want to do is imagine that you already have her or already had her, but not really, because for most guys, if they imagine they already hooked up to the girl and they're thinking rationally, they'd be like, I feel bad. Oh, I have a girlfriend or a wife. I would feel terrible. I don't actually know this woman. I don't even know if I really want her. I'm not even that attracted to her, whatever. So that's not what we're talking about. I'm not talking about rationally stepping into, like, if you already hooked up with her. I'm saying, like, work with the fantasy. There's a part of you that is in this story that there's your heaven over there, that your heaven lies with sleeping with this woman, okay? And we have to work with what we have, meaning we have to work with the fantasy. And so the way to think about it is like, okay, in the world where you could just, hook up with her, no strings attached, and everything could go perfectly, and there was no moral wrongdoing on your part, and let's say you already hooked up with her, how would you feel? Most guys, if they're being honest, would be like, oh, I feel great. I'd feel so validated. I'll do this exercise sometimes with clients where it's like, okay, imagine that you woke up on your own private island. You're massively rich, and you've got an entire island full of beautiful women that you sleep with constantly, okay? This is for helping guys who have, porn or sex addictions. Like, imagine this, and imagine that you've been doing this for months or even years. You are this guy, you've had all of this sexual success, and this is who you are. How would you feel if you were that man? And most guys are like, I'd feel amazing. I'd feel confident. I'd feel peaceful. And why is this? It's because they have embedded a piece of themselves into this sexual idea. There's a projection of their worth into the sexual status. And so what we're doing is we're going through to the end of the story and then just giving yourself the piece of yourself that you've locked behind a door. See, that's what a projection is we've locked a piece of our peace, an aspect of our contentment, in a cage. And sometimes that cage looks like lust. Sometimes it looks like greed. Sometimes it looks like, social status or something like that. And what we do is we work with the cage. We just go to the end of it. I'm not telling you to fantasize about having sex with all these women. I'm saying fantasize about having already had it. Go to the end. How would you feel? And if you feel peaceful, if you feel fulfilled, the point is that you can feel that anyway. You're supposed to feel that. That's the whole you. That's the true you, is that confident, successful, peaceful, self-satisfied person. That's who you're supposed to be. It's just that you locked that part of yourself behind some kind of conditional game, some kind of status game that you have to win. But you don't. And you can prove it to yourself by imagining. If you can imagine it and feel that good thing, well, then you just prove to yourself that you don't actually need the thing to feel that way, right? So that's what we're going for here. Like if you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, if I already had that, I'd feel bad. I feel that's not really what I want. It's like, well, then you're doing it wrong. I'm saying work with the fantasy. And what happens is as you work with the fantasy, as you walk through this, eventually you realize that you don't actually need the fantasy. So here's what happens. Like with people who are practicing this around lust and stuff like that, okay? They see an attractive woman. All of a sudden, they go into lust. They project a piece of their worth and peace into having sex with that woman. And if they don't have sex with that woman, they feel all sorts of lack and discomfort and this kind of stuff. And they need to use pain to make that discomfort go away. They need to use pain to fill that black hole, okay? In this approach, what they're going to be doing is imagining that they already hooked up with that woman. As soon as they feel that longing, they're like, oh, well, what if you already hooked up with her? How would you feel? And they'll be like, oh, I don't really care anymore. I feel okay. I feel fine. I can move on with my day. It's like, well, good. That's what we're trying to do. And eventually you get to the point where as you practice doing that, you don't need to even imagine already having hooked up with them. All you need to do is actually just remind yourself to give yourself the peace that you are withholding. And that's what happens then, is that things that were formerly triggers end up becoming reminders that you're just getting uncentered, that you're just getting kind of projected, and you just got to remember the goodness and fullness that you already have inside of yourself. Eventually, you won't even need the reminder because you will be locked in to a solid connection with your dignity around that thing. And that's the goal, because once you have that, then you're already going to be coming from a place of more fullness. You're automatically going to become more and more centered. And as you become more automatically centered, that just gives you more power for manifestation, because the more centered you are, the more in tune with your energy you are emotionally, and the more that it's not being spread out into projections and distractions and stuff like that, the more you can focus it into the things that you're actually trying to manifest. So between this video and the last video, you got a lot to work with here. And what I want you guys to do is start getting out there and experimenting. Let me know what's working for you. Let me know what you're struggling with, because I want to make sure that I can continue to provide follow-up and feedback and let you guys know what other stuff you can do to empower this kind of process, because there's so much to this, really. Like it really is an incredibly rich and complicated journey. But you can keep it simple at first. Pick some area you want to make a change in and focus on doing this kind of thing. So that's what I have for you guys today. Hopefully you got something interesting. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Play big. I'll see you in the next one.